Hi everybody, Calamity here, and welcome to my first guide of 2024, and I'm sorry that this one has been delayed for quite a while, but today's video is going to be all about our favorite president of Spina del Rosa, Navia. And in this video, we're going to go over everything you need to know about her, from her talents, weapons, artifacts, constellations, team setups, and of course I'm going to do a combat showcase and talk about the character, my opinion of the character at the very end. That's a lot to do, so let's get started. Navia has the absolute pleasure of being both an on-field or a quick swap DPS character. It all depends on how you want to play her, and both ways are very viable, and they'll both do tons of damage, so it doesn't matter what you choose to do, your Navia is going to be killing stuff in no time. But first, let's talk about what her talents actually do, starting with the normal attack. Now, on paper, this normal attack is, well, it's normal. There's nothing special about it. There's no special mechanics to it. She has a 4-hit combo. Her charge attack is the same spinning charge attack that most Claymore users do. And her plunging attack is also very much the same. However, this is a talent you'll probably end up leveling second. I do recommend leveling her elemental skill with the highest priority, then her normal attack, and then lastly her elemental burst. But let's move on to what the elemental skill actually does, and this one is quite a doozy. As you can see, this one has a lot of text going on, so let's quickly condense it down for you. The main strategy when it comes to using Navia is you want to hit opponents with Geo to get the crystallized reaction, and you're basically just going to want to grab as much of those crystallized shards as you can before using your elemental skill, because every time you grab one of the shards, you get what's called a crystal shrapnel stack. You can have up to 6 stacks of crystal shrapnel at once. In fact, you can actually see this on Navia. It's actually a little bit to her left. I should have gameplay of it, and I should be pointing at it right about now. You can see it on the left. You can actually see that when you have more than 3, the bullets get brighter and longer once you have 4, 5, and 6 consecutively. Now, depending on how many stacks you have, when you use your elemental skill, Navia will fire 3 of those shrapnel stacks. And when you use 3 of those stacks, she will shoot 11 what's called Rosula shard shots. Basically, think of her elemental skill as a shotgun that gets really, really strong with the more ammo it has. The more ammo it has, the more damage it does. That's basically it when it comes to Navia's skill. Of course, you can pause the video and like read up on the skill if you want to. Something that is worth noting though is that you should always strive to get the maximum amount of stacks with Navia, which is 6, because if we check out here on the bottom of the skill, if you have any additional stacks of shrapnel, those that don't get consumed add an additional 15% damage. So if you have all 6, you're getting a whopping 45% bonus damage on top of the already huge multiplier that this skill has, and the 200% damage boost that you get for shooting all 11 Rosula shard shots. So if you look at the skill attributes, my talent is only level 8 because, you know, the weekly boss, I've only fought it so many times, and you can see that it's already high. Like, this is a really high multiplier for an elemental skill, 631.7% damage here, and that's just the base. Once you add, you know, more shards and the extra shard bonus, this is even higher. It's like crazy. It's almost like 1,000 skill multiplier at this point, and it actually has a really low cooldown, which is also really nice, only of 9 seconds, and you can use it twice. Now that the elemental skill is explained, there is actually a press and a hold version for Navia's elemental skill, but unlike other characters, you will actually be using both versions. It all depends on the situation. Now, both of these versions actually do the same damage as well, but the difference is when you enter hold, Navia will actually suck in any nearby crystal shards from your crystallized reactions. So if you just need like a couple more and you're not sure where they're at, because, you know, battles can be chaotic, you can just use the whole version, suck them all in, get that big damage boost there. And lastly, she does do Uja damage. So if you're fighting any Numia-based enemies, she can, activate whatever special mechanic it is with her own Geo damage. Phew! That was a long one to explain, but thankfully her burst is very straightforward. She's going to summon a bombardment of cannon fire that will damage opponents and will grant you that shrapnel, the crystal shrapnel, as well as hit opponents with AoE geo damage. When it does that, you're actually getting double the shrapnel if you think about it, because the one stack you get from actually just hitting an opponent, and then the second stack because you're creating the crystallized reaction, assuming you have the correct other element to make the reaction, and so you're getting twice the shrapnel, or at least you should be. And you gain one shrapnel every 2.4 seconds while the cannon fire is happening. But not only that, the cannon fire also follows you around, so don't feel like, oh, I wasted my burst because, I'm fighting an enemy that teleports or jumps around and I missed it. No, just chase after the enemy and the cannon fire will actually follow you as well. But don't expect this elemental burst to do any sort of crazy amounts of damage. The skill multiplier is pretty low, but yes, it does last 12 seconds and it fires over a long period of time, and that damage adds up. But when you compare it to her elemental skill, these cannon bombs might as well be tickling your opponents compared to what her elemental skill can do. Thankfully, it's also it's on the cheaper side, I suppose, of elemental bursts here. It's only costing 60, but you still definitely want to get some energy recharge for your Navia, because we're using this burst mainly for its effect, not so much the damage. Next up are her Ascension talents. We have the Undisclosed Distribution Channels. This makes it so that Navia's elemental skill infuses her normal attacks into Geo, and it also gives them a nice whopping 40% damage boost. So this talent is mainly for those that want to use Navia as an on-field DPS character, as it allows her to utilize her normal attacks once her elemental skills are used up, and it also helps you generate some extra crystallized shards. There is a combo that you'll want to do if you want to maximize your crystal shards and damage with Navia. We'll talk more about that later. Next up is Mutual Assistance Network. This is just incentivizing that you use Navia with whomever you want. Again, remember that crystallize can only happen with Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro, which fits just as well with this passive talent. And for every 2 party members you have of these 4 elements, you'll gain a 20% attack boost, and this effect stacks twice, so 40% attack boost just for having any sort of Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro teammates. Again, remember that you cannot crystallize off of Dendro or Anemo, which is unfortunate, but it's just how it is. Last up is Painstaking Transaction. You'll gain 25% more rewards when you do an expedition in Fontaine. Next up, let's talk about weapons for your Navia. Now, obviously, I spent a stupid amount of money getting this weapon for her. It is her best weapon, but you're not here for that. You're here for more of the free-to-play options, or at least the ones that don't cost so much on the banner, right? I get you. Let's actually talk about some viable options. Now, if you are looking for 5-star options, by the way, all of the DPS claymores are going to be great here. Even like a Skyward Blade is also going to be pretty good. Just to give you some examples real fast, the Unforged, Wolf's Gravestone, Redhorn Stone Thresher, which is Arataki Ito's weapon. These are all going to be 5-star options, and honestly, they're all good. But let's move on to more viable 4-star options. One of the first being the Katsura Gakiri Nagamasa. Jeez, I hate saying that every time because I can't pronounce it well. Anyways, this weapon's going to increase your elemental skill damage by a bit, as well as give you some extra energy to help with that burst uptime. This is something you can craft in Inazuma, so definitely a nice free-to-play option there. If you are a buyer of the Battle Pass, then I definitely should recommend the Serpent Spine to you. It's one of the best 4-star claymores in the game, especially if you have more refinements for it. This, however, requires your Navia to be more of an on-field DPS rather than a quick swap, so you can actually take advantage of the weapon's effect. Prototype Archaic is another good free-to-play option because it's craftable, and it's just straight up more damage because it gives you attack percentage as a substat. The weapon's effect is honestly whatever. You can leave this at Refinement 1 if you want. It's just a nice starter weapon. Now, I can recommend this because the event is currently going on right now at the time of recording, but if you are watching this in a future update, where this sword is not available, I'm sorry, but hopefully Hoyoverse allows you to get event weapons in the future. That being said, for those of you that are watching this while this weapon is still available, the Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword is a fantastic weapon for Navia. It basically covers your energy recharge needs once you actually get it to level 90, unlike me, and you'll get a big attack boost from the weapon's effect. So this weapon allows you to really focus on your crit rate and your crit damage without sacrificing your other important substats like energy recharge and attack percentage. One other weapon that I forgot to mention is the Tidal Shadow. This is a weapon you can craft in Fontaine. All it requires is for Navia to have a healer, because every time she's healed, she'll gain an attack boost for 24% at Refinement 1. This becomes, I believe, double at Refinement 5. So if you have the materials to do so, this is going to be a great effect. A great weapon for Navia. Next up, let's talk artifacts for Navia, and she has quite a bit of options when it comes to artifact sets. Now, obviously, I have the brand new Nighttime Whispers of the Echoing Wood set. This is going to be her best option, but, you know, a lot of people will probably argue that it's not resin efficient to go to the brand new domain because of the other artifact set in there. And, you know, you can't strong box this set quite yet, but it's up to you. If you want to go for this, you know, artifact set because you want the best one for your Navia, then feel free. However, if you are looking for alternate options, the Golden Troop and the Mary Chowsey Hunter set are going to be also viable options. However, the latter set I just mentioned, the Hunter set, this one is only viable if you have Farina, because she can actively proc the 4-piece effect, making you lose HP, so you'll be gaining the 36% crit rate, you know, basically all the time. It'll be up all the time. Now the other set is the Golden Troop here. This basically just increases your elemental skill. This is the perfect set if you're using her for a quick swap. Now if you are just starting out and you don't have access to these domains, or you just want to put something on Navia real fast, there ain't nothing wrong with using the old Gladiator's Finale. This is just going to give you some nice bonus damage on the 2-piece effect. You don't have to go the full 4-piece here. You can give her like 2-piece Gladiators and like, let's say 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate, or if I can actually see it, there it is. Emblem of Severed Fate giving you some energy recharge, or another 2-piece attack percentage artifact set of your choosing. You can like with the Shimenawa's Reminiscence, for example, but definitely want to pick one of the earlier options that I mentioned before, which is these 3 up here. But regardless, once you have decided on an artifact set, the subsets you're looking for are pretty easy. Navia is a main DPS or a quick swap DPS, but it doesn't matter. Whichever way you're playing her as, the stats are the same. You're looking for crit rate, crit damage, try to get both of those you know, as high as you can. You're looking for attack percentage, you're looking for energy recharge. This one's important. Just make sure you have enough to make your burst feel comfortable to use off cooldown, and the uptime is really good. And that is pretty much it. The other filler stats you could get is just like flat attack. Remember that Elemental Mastery doesn't really do anything for Navia or Geo characters in general. It's not going to improve your damage or anything like that. It will improve the damage absorption of your crystallized shields, but that's not something you should focus on. You should just focus on getting the crystallized shields just for the damage increase or elemental skill. It's better just to pair her with a shielder of your choice, and then, you know, just focus on the offensive stats. Now for the Sands, Goblet, and the Circlet, what are you looking for? Again, pretty straightforward. I'm sure you guys can do way better than the artifacts that I'm showing right here. But for the Sands, you can get the attack percentage main stat 1, and that's all you need. Energy recharge is definitely not needed here. You can cover your energy recharge needs with just some good substats. For the Goblet, you definitely want to go Geo damage bonus. This one is pretty easy. If you are, you know, early on in your artifact farming and you don't have a good Geo damage one, then of course attack percentage being okay to use until you get a good Geo damage one. And lastly, for the Circlet, crit rate, crit damage, whichever one you feel like you lack more of, just go for that one. Again, if you paused and looked at any of my substats for my artifacts, they are terrible, terrible, terrible. And even though that my Navia's artifacts are just absolutely awful, I'm still going to showcase using these same artifacts in the Spiral Abyss. So if you want to see that, just stick around for the end of the video. Next up are her constellations. Navia is a character that is perfectly viable at C0, but if you decide to invest into her further, What can you get? Starting at C1, this is going to help your energy needs by making so that your elemental skill restores 3 energy to her and decreases the cooldown of your elemental burst by 1 second. You can gain up to 9 energy from this constellation alone, and you can decrease your burst's cooldown by 3 seconds. This is a nice constellation to have. Just again, it just eases up on the energy recharge requirements a little bit. C2 is basically a Mary Chelsea Hunter set in a constellation. When you basically use her elemental skill, she can get up to 36% crit rate, which is the exact same amount you get from the Mary Chelsea Hunter set. So if you're using both, you basically have 72% crit rate for free, not including any sort of substats from your artifacts or weapon. Additionally, this constellation makes it so that your elemental burst fires 1 more shot, so that's another stack of shrapnel and possibly another crystallized reaction, depending on what it hits. So very, very good elemental, or a very good constellation there. C3, C5, gonna increase your skill and burst respectively. Now obviously getting 3+ levels to your skill is gonna be great damage increase, but the 3 levels to your burst, you know, that's easily her worst constellation out of this whole bunch. C4 is going to straight up decrease your opponent's geo resistance by 20% for 8 seconds. This will stack with other effects like Zhongli's Pillar and the Geo Resonance buff. Lastly, C6 is going to make your elemental skill gain a whopping 100 and I can't math right now. Is it 135% crit damage bonus? And it will return the first 3 crystal shrapnel back to Navia. So you can basically fire both shots in concession. And if you have 6, it's like you have, you know, the full 6 shrapnel stacks for both shots in a really short amount of time. This is really, really dumb. It gives so much damage to Navia, but obviously this is whale territory. But if you were just curious as to what the constellations provide, there you go. Let's talk team comps for your Navia. And now you might be wondering, hey, you're missing like half your team. What's up? Honestly, Navia is a very flexible character and she can work with any elements you want to give her. Now it's highly recommended to give your Navia any Geo character of your choosing. It doesn't have to be Ningguang here. I have her up here because she's a great accessible 4-star character that most players will have, or at least free-to-players as well. You might have access to her, but the reason for that is because we want to activate what's called the Geo Resonance called Enduring Rock. This is going to make your shield strength increase by 15%, and it's going to increase your Geo damage by 15%, as well as decrease Geo resistance of your opponents by 20% for 15 seconds. This is a really, really strong resonance buff. In fact, it's probably one of the stronger ones in the game still, and that is why we want to pair Navia with any Geo character you're choosing. Again, just to give you some more examples, you can pair her up with Albedo, Zhongli, Yunjin. You don't want to use Goro. Goro improves defense, and that's not going to help Navia. But any of those previously mentioned characters are going to be absolutely fine. Now for the other 2, it's a very common combo, if you need some ideas here, to use Zhongling and to bring Bennett, because this gives you the Pyro Resonance, which gives you 25% additional attack for free. And then of course we all know Bennett being one of the best healers and buffers in the game, giving your Navia a really big damage boost. But Zhongling here, because of her great pyro application as well. And that's what you want when you pair up characters with Navia. You want characters that apply their element frequently, because that's how you want to create those crystallized shards basically all the time. Ningguang is also going to be here to provide energy for your Navia as well, and to help proc crystallize while Navia is not on the field. She can do it with her burst, her skill, and just even her normal attacks, since she's a catalyst user. But yeah, this is probably one of the most common teams you'll see for Navia, just because it's very free-to-play friendly. It only requires 2 4-star pyro characters. Again, they're very, very strong, but you don't have to use them. If we just go through the list here, you could use Fischl, you could use Yae Miko, Koki Shinobu. They're all 3 of these characters are Electro and apply tons and tons of their element. As I mentioned before, Furina being you know, a really good support for anybody, and in this case she's going to be a great one for Navia. Just make sure you bring a healer of your choosing that can keep up with Navia's HP drain. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Traveler can be a good partner for Navia, and I don't mean that just in the story quest if you did that, but Geo, mine's Hydro right now because I just wanted to use the newer element for her Traveler, but you can give her Geo Traveler as a nice partner as well. Noelle is another character I forgot to mention. You can use her with Navia. Since Navia can be used as a quick swap DPS, you can still use your Noelle as your on-field DPS and your healer slash shielder if you want to. Totally up to you. Rosaria going to be a good option here for the crit rate buff and applying her cryo for crystallize. Layla, same thing, applies a lot of cryo. Good shielder here if you don't have Zhongli. Jing Cho again applies a lot of his hydro. If you're using Navi as an on-field DPS, then he'll synergize with your normal attacks. You can use Mona, you can use Albedo. Now you can, someone did make the argument to me that you can use a animal character if you want. Just keep in mind that you won't be getting the full passive talent stacks for having an Anemo in your team, assuming you bring another Geo character, but it's totally up to you if you want to trade a little bit of damage for the convenience of grouping up your enemies together. But I wouldn't use Sucrose just because she gives EM buffs. I would prefer to use someone like, you know, Kazuha, but you know, limited 5-star character and all that. But yeah, there are tons and tons of options to use with your Navia. Just because I didn't mention a specific character does not mean they are bad. It's honestly up to, well, you and what your account has and what characters you have access to and which ones are built. So any off-field elemental application of Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo elements is going to be a good pairing with Navia. All right, we've made it to the end of the guide. I should be having my Spiral Abyss footage in the background. I'm using Navia on the first half of Spiral Abyss, but to be honest, Navia can work on both halves. It's honestly up to you. Wherever you want to use her, she will do fine. I will just quickly comment 2 things. One being that the second half of Chamber 2 on floor 12 is going to be a bit of a problem for Navia because of the Geo Slimes and the Geo Specters being completely immune to Geo damage, but she can break those shields really quickly with her normal attacks. So you're going to have to bring some sort of other sub DPS of a different element to help you kill off those Slimes and Specters. But once you kill them, the rest of the chamber is pretty easy. And the other thing I want to comment is that on my Spiral Abyss run that you're seeing right now, you might be looking at the time when I finished the first boss, which is the mechanical array thingy. And you might be looking at that time and going, whoa, you took a really long time to kill that boss. My response to you is yes. Okay, I did take a long time to kill that boss, and it wasn't the best fight, and I definitely could have cleaned up my rotations better for a faster clear time, but regardless, the second boss, which is the Electrobat, is a much easier boss fight to kill. I am using a Hyper Bloom team on my second half, which you're not seeing, and yes, I was able to clear it in the 3-star time window, and yes, this is a full 9-star Spiral Abyss run that you're seeing, or at least the first halves that you're seeing. You're not seeing the second half because you don't need to see Hyper Bloom do Hyper Bloom things. Now, that being said, sorry about all that. Navia, she is a fantastic character. She's a very fun character to play, very unique compared to other Geo DPSs here. She's not just another, hey, get a bunch of defense percentage Claymore user like Noelle or Arataki Ito. She has her own unique playstyle. She does take advantage of what is possibly the worst, you know, elemental reaction in the game right now, which is Crystallize, and she turns it into all of a sudden this really powerful elemental reaction that buffs her elemental skill significantly. She's also really easy to play, easy to understand despite her elemental skill being like an essay long. And I should also point out that in the gameplay that you're seeing, I am doing sort of an optimal-ish combo, even though I'm probably not doing it consistently. But when you are using Navia, you want to use her skill first. Remember that you have 2 charges of it. The full combo is using her elemental skill first, then using 3 normal attacks into a dash, and then you follow it up with 2 normal attacks into a final usage of your elemental skill. What this does is that it allows you to build up shards and allows you to crystallize twice. Because if you just mash the normal attacks once you have your Geo Infusion from your skill, the ICD of Geo application actually conflicts with your ability to crystallize Navia's damage here. Or Navia's attacks, I mean. So that's why we do the dash, to sort of like stall ourselves a little bit and to stall like the ICD, and then we're able to get 2 crystallizes, or at least we should. And another thing that I'm going to give myself feedback on is I probably should have tried to use the hold version of her elemental skill a couple times to easily suck up some of those elemental shards. That's going to be a wrap on this guide. If you have any other further questions about Navia's kit, weapon options, artifact options, constellations, something I didn't explain well, please let me know in the comments below as well. Don't forget to leave a like and or subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And once again, sorry for the delay on this guide coming out. You know, obviously all the big content creators have already had their guides come out by now, and mine's barely just getting out, and that was because of artifact farming. I wanted to get some really good artifacts on my Navia before I made a guide for her, so that I could showcase her in a nice, you know, a nice light with some really good artifacts. But you can see my Spiral Abyss results with those really awful artifacts that I showcased earlier, and she is doing just fine in the Spiral Abyss. So whatever times and numbers you're seeing on the screen in the gameplay right now, just note that these runs could be much faster and the numbers could be much bigger than what you're seeing. Because again, her artifacts are far from optimized. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.